What's up, guys? Welcome back to Talkin Hawkins. Welcome back to Project Potter. My name is Kyler, host. Guys, if you haven't been here before, this is our Stranger Things review. We're here for season 2, episode 6, guys, The Spy. I go through kind of my thoughts on the episode, guys, my favorite character, which is my Hawkins hero, my mouth breather, which is my least favorite character, and a score of 10, guys. So appreciate you guys stopping by. If you do like the content, please consider liking, commenting, subscribing. And of course, guys, go check out the other content. There's a whole bunch of it. Jumping in here, guys. Some things I really liked. Scene behind me, guys, which is our Steve and Dustin bromance that we get here, and it's kind of this older brother younger brother vibe, which is great, as they're taking down a baby Demogorgon. Dustin trapped Dart in the bulkhead last time, and then he's going to see the Wheelers, and then Steve is there, and he's like, okay, get in your car. And then Steve is like, how do you know it's not just a lizard? He's like, it's not just a lizard, dude. He's like, well, how do you know? And Dustin's like, because it opened its mouth and it ate my cat. I love all the stuff with Lucas and Max here, where they have like a nice heart-to-heart on top of the bus scene at the junkyard, of course, which is after Steve and Dustin set up all the meat. And we get the Will and Hopper stuff, which is nice, where not only are they like kind of brought in and quarantined, but we get all the stuff into Will's condition, basically, where we know that the fire to burn like that pit hurts Will, and we have all the doctors sitting around there, and Winona Ryder, once again, great as Joyce Byers, is like, can anyone in this room tell me what's wrong with my boy? And she's like, what is wrong with my boy? And it's really good. And it's like, man, she's so consistent. She's just really great in every episode from the beginning of the first season, really. So she continues that here, but they can't figure out what's going on with Will. They're like, everything looks good. But then they like scan his brain, and they're like, this is Will's brain like a week ago. This is his brain yesterday. And this is his brain an hour ago. And it's just getting worse and worse and worse. Talking about like PTSD and how there's like all this activity that's going on there. And Will starts to forget things, which is really, really sad. He like recognizes Mike. He's like, that's my friend Mike. But he's like, who are you? He like sees Bob, and he's like, I don't know who that is. And he's like, it's me, it's Bob. And he's like, I don't know who you are. Are you a doctor? And then Hopper is like, hey kid, do you remember me? And he's like, remember I saved you. We went, like had spent some time together. And he's like, no, I don't know who you are. And it's like, oh, that's so sad, dude. And they're like, what happens when Will just forgets everything? Like Joyce says, like, what happens when my boy is gone? So the doctors get together. They find out, because they're like, you know what? I think we're going to test something. And they bring over like one of the little pieces of like eel or whatever from the Upside Down, and they bring like a blowtorch to it, and they get closer to it, and Will's like, it's hot. It's like, he's like, it feels like it's burning everywhere. And then they get really close, and he's like, and they're like, stop. So that's how they kind of realize that they can't burn it because it hurts Will. And so they're like, well, this thing is continuing to spread. And so they're like, look, we have to burn it because, you know, the kid's going to die, but like, this is going to get out to everyone. And I'm like, this is a good point. But the main doctor that I picked for my Hawkins hero a few episodes back, guys, I love how he continues to be like the good guy. And it's like, once again, these guys are not the bad guys from season 1. These are the good dudes. And there's one douchebag on a team that's like, he pulls over like he pulls out like if he dies, he dies kind of thing. And they're like, if one boy dies, at least it saves him. The doctor's like, no, dude, I can't hear this. Like, we're not going to kill a boy. Guys, we get Jonathan and Nancy Byers finally kissing. And it's like they're with Murray, he's like pouring them vodka, and they're like, oh, we got to get going. He's like, where? They're like, well, it's getting late. We got to drive home. And he's like, drive tonight? He's like, no. Dude, he's like, you guys are wasted. And he's like, oh, so like, how long have you guys been together? And they're like, we're just friends. And he's like, you've told me a lot of crazy things tonight, but he's like, that is the first lie of the night. And they're like, what? No. And he's like, let me guess. And he like guesses everything about both of them. And he's like, let me guess. You like, what's the name? And Jonathan is like, Steve. And he's like, Steve. He's like, you like Steve? He's like, but we don't love Steve, do we? And she's like looking at her. I'm like, and it's just really great. And then he's like, you know what? Well, you guys should just cut the bullshit. He's like, look, there's a pullout cot if you guys really want to do that. But he's like, there's a guest room. Just take the guest room. He's like, cut the bullshit. Sleep in the same bed. And he goes upstairs, and Jonathan and Nancy are kind of like, and they go in their separate rooms. Like, oh yeah, glad we're on the same page. And then it's like a really nice scene where Jonathan like turns out the light, and then you're like, it's like you're watching a movie, like a rom-com, and you're just like, just go, you know? Cut to Nancy. She's sitting there. She's like, and then she like gets up to go and talk to Jonathan, opens the door, and then he's already there. And then they kiss, and it's like, it's so great, dude. And I'm like, finally, dude. It's like the music is going, and it's just really, really nice. And it's a great moment. We talked about how in the past, Mike, when they went to go find Hopper, Mike was like super spy. He called Will a super spy. The tables have turned, guys, and now this thing is taking over. The shadow's taking over Will, and now it's using Will to spy on things. And so there's this tragic like trap it sets up where Will is like this. He's like, this is what it doesn't want me to see. I've got to go to this spot. He's like, all right, let's see if this kid's right. And he said they send like a squad in there. And they take a left, take a right, and they're like, there's nothing down here. Then Hopper's like, that's where I was. He's like, that's the graveyard. And I was like, oh, dude, not a good sign. Guys get there, and there's like, I don't even know how we got so many, but I think they come from the pit, maybe. But there's like 3 or 4 Demigorgons, and there's a great scene where the kids are all at the bus, and Steve Harrington's got the bat, he's swinging away. He's like, come on, you want some of this? And they're like, oh my God. Dustin's like, he's so awesome. The Demigorgons like come over, and there's like almost like a Jurassic Park scene where it's like stomping on top of the bus, and it looks down. Steve is like ready to fight it, but it goes away, and he's like, oh no, they're going somewhere. And we find out that we get Will being like, I'm so sorry. And his mom's like, what are you talking about? And then it's like, oh no, dude. And we see what's coming, and they have the radar, and all the Demigorgons are just coming in there, and the fog comes in, and I don't know where this fog is coming from. Like, is it from the Demigorgons? Can they like materialize it? I don't know, because it wasn't foggy and it became foggy. It's confusing, but the Demigorgons come in and just wreck everyone, and they're like, oh my God, dude, like what a disaster. And then they go to leave, and it's just like they're all going towards the lab, and they see the radar, like all the red dots like surround them, and then they just go, and it's like, oh shit. And Hopper goes over to like the entrance, and he knows what's about to happen. Then they're like about to come up, and then the episode ends with the Demigorgon like his hand on top of there, and it's like, dude, we are in for quite a ride next episode, let me tell you. Okay, guys, my Hawkins hero, this one's easy. It's Steve Harrington, man. He's so awesome. He does a great job. I didn't mention, guys, that scene behind me, he tells Dustin, like, you know, girls are easy. He's like, you just got to act like you don't care. And Dustin's like, even if you do, he's like, exactly, dude. And because Dustin's like, I don't have the hair like you. And he's like, look, man, he's like, a little Farrah Fawcett in here. And he's like, Fabergé or whatever he says. And he's like, don't tell anyone I said that or you're dead. Okay. And Dustin's like, oh, okay, interesting. And it's just really nice because like these are 2 of the most likable characters. He's like, oh, some girls want you to be like aggressive and dominant. And he's like, other girls, like, you know, they want you to like kind of hang back. And Dustin's like, oh, is Nancy like that? And he goes, Nancy's different. He's like, don't talk about Nancy. And it's like, it's really sweet. And then Dustin is talking about how he has a crush on Max, but then Lucas is obviously into Max, and they were kind of going at it. But there's obviously clearly a much better connection between Lucas and Max, so we'll see kind of how that plays out. And then Lucas and Max are holding hands. But yeah, Dan, Steve Harrington is just awesome, and he just does such a great job of playing that cool older brother role, and he's not afraid. And it's like, it's funny how the Steve that we saw in season 1, where he was with Nancy and Jonathan, where they're like, dude, are you gonna fight or are you gonna go home? And he was like so afraid, and now he's like, dude, let's go. He's like, he's faced a Demigorgon, he's like, bring him on, dude. And he's just like ready to put out all on the line. And that experience really helped him, I think, and he's just really good. And I love his moment with Dustin, and just in general, he's just great to watch. I love Joe Keery. And yeah, Steve, I think, is the best one in this one. Okay, guys, my mouth breather for this one, it's actually going to be Billy. I love Billy as a character, and Dacre Montgomery does a great job, and he's going to have his time to shine. But I felt like Billy was a little forced in this episode. I didn't think we needed Billy. And like, it seems like every scene we're getting now, Billy is just like telling Max to stay away from the kids. And it's like, he doesn't know he's kids. So it's weird that he's even like saying that. And he's just kind of being like a jerk, and he hasn't really shown much character development. And so we got scenes too with him facing off against Steve playing basketball, guys. I didn't mention the last couple episodes, and he's like in the shower, and he's like, plenty of bitches in the sea to Steve, and he like shuts the water off and stuff. And Steve is like, bro, I used Farrah Fawcett on my hair. Like, come on, man. Does Steve bring his Farrah Fawcett to the gym? I don't know. Billy, I just feel like is a little forced in this one, and I'm like, I go into the episode without Billy. I don't think we get any 11 in this episode. If we do, it's very, very minimal. I don't really remember it, but I could have used no Billy in this one. I just thought Billy was no discredit to Dacre Montgomery or that look, because man, what a look that is with the mullet and the mustache. But he's just a little too villain for me in this episode, and I just thought he was the weakest one. Okay, guys, that brings us to the score. This is a really strong episode. This is a 9-3 for me. I really, really enjoyed it. Between the Dustin and Steve part was the highlight, but the Nancy and Jonathan stuff, man, is so good. You're just like, yes, I finally kissed, and you're like, yes, dude. finally. I think Steve kind of knows this place where it's not really like a love triangle. He kind of knows he's on the outside looking in now, but it's like, how can he be there to support that? Or how's he going to deal with that? Or is he going to try to get Nancy back? Now he's got Dustin under his wing, Lucas and Max, that kind of storyline there. Mike was kind of a side character in this one where he's just kind of sitting next to Will and not really doing anything. But the whole Will spy thing, it's like Will just murdered all these people, right? And so I feel like they're going to have a conversation now where they're like, we have to kill Will. But then it's like, we can't kill a boy. It's obviously the thing inside of him that's setting it up, but they can't trust anything he says now. And it's like, they got to burn the pit. And it's really interesting to see where it's going to go. And I don't really remember kind of how the rest of the season plays out. So we have 3 more episodes, guys. And so I'm excited to see what's going on. How does Billy play into the rest of the season? We'll certainly find out. But yeah, I think this is a really strong episode with, again, great score, great characters, great story. I love how the Demogorgon, like I mentioned, guys, like Dustin traps it down there and Steve's like, you got to come down here, dude. And they have like his skin there. And then we find out like just buried right through like bricks or concrete. I don't even know how it got through there. But yeah, overall, guys, just a strong entry. All right, guys, that's it. That's another episode of Talkin Hawkins. Like I said, guys, 3 more to go in season 2. So thanks for checking out the channel. We're getting towards the end here of season 2, guys. Hasn't been as good as season 1, but there's still some really nice elements. And the cast is so strong that it's like, even though it's not that magic of the first, we know that Eleven's going to come back into play. Eleven's kind of been off to the side here, but she still had her own things going through. And it's like, when this group is at full capacity, we know what they look like and we know the fun that they're going to have. And it's just a really well-made show. Even the bad episodes are still really enjoyable. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited to see how they handle Will and what's going on with the shadow and all that. And then the creature that Will saw in the Upside Down and what's going on there. So that's all going to be great, guys. But appreciate you guys. Until next Sunday. Peace.